There are a handful of authors that I follow very closely. I get very excited when I see that they have written something new and that I will be able to get my hands on some of their new stories. Because I just know their stories will make me feel something great. And well, Stephen Baxter is one of them. Hi everyone, this is Crowley's Bookshop. Today for my second book review, I wanted to talk about one of my very favorite books. And this one is Space by Stephen Baxter. It is not a book that is a very well-known book, and it is not a book that is talked about nearly enough in science fiction spaces, pun intended. Space is the second book of a saga that is not linear, meaning that you can actually read this one before the first one of the saga, the Manifold saga, which is time, so you don't actually have to go through time to go through space. Again, pun intended. It's not very good, but I'm trying. As I said, it is not a book that is talked nearly as much as it should be in science fiction spaces, and I intend to set the record straight because it is genuinely one of the very best work of fiction and of science fiction that I have ever read in my entire life. So in this book, some sort of alien activity has been detected around Jupiter, some sort of Van Neumann probe, i.e. auto-replicating devices, which are named Gaijin for the Japanese for stranger. One astronaut, Reed Malenfant, a name that comes back a lot in Stephen Baxter's books, is sent there to investigate and discovers some sort of portal. He then travels across the galaxy and discovers that humanity is far from being alone. At the same time, humans have used a lot of resources on Earth and they use the portal to access new planets and horizons to rebuild. I love this book primarily because it talks about a lot of themes that are very close to my heart. The very first one being whether we are alone or not, i.e. the Fermi Paradox. Just to be sure that we're all talking about the same thing, the Fermi Paradox is a very well-known question in science fiction and science in general. The question being, if aliens are out there, why don't we see no traces of them? It is a running theme in a lot of science fiction books and a lot of Stephen Baxter's books, and I think space is the best answer you can come by. And I think it's also the most plausible answer we can have, which is even more brilliant. Of course, for other themes, there is humanity and what humans can do in order to survive, their intelligence, their resourcefulness, and how some individuals can really change the course of history. Baxter is not necessarily a character-driven type of author. His characters tend to be a bit secondary to its plot, but I just love the way he wove them into the story, and in this case, I do believe it is a bit of a difference with his other work. But I just love the way he wove them into the story. Malenfant, for example, is a bit of a hothead, a man-child who thinks he is a lot better than he actually is, and he's a bit odd shit. But there is also Madeline, I guess in English. There is a pilot who is confronted to the unknown, Nemoto, who is almost a godlike figure, and Dorothy, who is a priest in charge of first contact, a bit like the character in The Expanse. They all say something very important about humanity, and I actually love the way religion is also woven into that story. It is very clever. Baxter being a scientist himself, there is a lot of science into that story, but I genuinely love to pause my reading and go on like Google or Wikipedia to get more research about the themes and the sciences that he's putting into his books. It is so fascinating to me. There is also a lot of irony in his book. Even with the best technology and the best scientist advancement, the universe is still going to get your ass. And it is such a strong force that we will never be as strong as it is. It is so powerful as a story and as a concept. The book is about a lot of concepts, really, and it gives so many great keys and clues along the way. Don't get me wrong, the writing is very dry and the prose very to the point, and there is no flowery language to Baxter in general, but that is the reason why I love it so much. You get what you get, and that's it. It is a very British way to write science fiction, I guess, or a very scientist way to write science fiction. It may be a bit too dry to some, but I really like it, especially with these kinds of themes, which are so beyond humanity. I also love the travels it takes your mind to. All the questions it forces into your head. This is, for me, the epitome of science fiction. Sure, it is a very scientific book, but it's also a very philosophical book. And it really forces you away from your comfort zone. And it is actually quite rare that a book does that to me because, as I said, I have been reading science fiction for a very long time. So I am used to a lot of plot points and characters and questions that are hurled my way. But this book really shook me in the way I view science fiction and in the way I view questions about the universe in general. It's a very disconcerting book, even for someone who is very used to space opera. When I read it, I just could not put it down. It just called to me and I just could not let it go. I read it in like 48 hours, and it is very rare that I read a book that is 400 pages long in such a short amount of time. I have never read anything quite like this since even other Baxter's books, and I have been reading the Destiny's Children series at the moment. It is a bit of the same feels, but it's not quite like it. I don't think I will actually ever read something quite like it ever. It really solidified Baxter as a science fiction master for me, and I hope that it gets more and more recognized. And I know he is kind of a big figure right now in science fiction, but not for this book, which I always find a bit sad because for me it is his magnus opus. It is the best book he has ever done. And it's not to diss all his other works, he is very brilliant in basically everything he is doing. I loved every single of his books, even the weirdest ones, but I don't know, this one really spoke to me on a very deep level. I was going to continue what I did with The Children of Time and read a quote that I really like about the book. And most of his quotes are very, very long, but I'm trying to get the shortest one that I can. And the quote that I can read today is it really conceivable, given all of that immensity, all that structure, that we are truly alone, that life emerged here and nowhere else? Thinking about paradoxes is the way human understanding advances. I think the Fermi Paradox is telling us something very profound about the universe and our place in it. And just to talk quickly about the other 3 books in the Manifold saga, Time is very enjoyable as well. It is not at the level of Space, but it is quite enjoyable. Origin is a bit difficult to go into. It is, in my opinion, unnecessary cruel with very graphic imageries, so pay attention to that if you are sensitive to these kind of topics. And as for Phase Space, it is a bunch of very short novellas. Some of them are not even a page long, but they are very interesting. At this point, I was not necessarily really into novellas, but I really learned to go more into short stories lately, and I really want to read this book again because I don't think I gave it the attention that it should have been given, if that makes sense. But the other books of the Manifold saga are also very interesting, and I really encourage you to get into them after Space, of course. And as for the rest of Baxter's work, I will eventually go back to other of his books because, as I said, I was going into the Children of Destiny books, and I just recently finished the last one, that is Resplendent, and I really want to go back to this saga eventually, and also the Xili saga. There is a lot to say about Baxter's work in general, and I really want to go back to his work because he's an incredible author. If you have never gone into his work, I really encourage you to. It is very, very good, and there is a lot of science bits as well if it is your thing, but I really encourage you to go into his work. Galaxias is also very great if you want to learn about his writing and you don't necessarily want to go into a big saga or multiple book saga. It is a great way to start. That's it for me for this video. It is a bit of a shorter video because truly it is difficult to talk about this book without going into spoiler realm, and I really don't want to spoil this book because it is such a, as I said, it is a fantastic adventure and a fantastic mind-opening and mind-blowing book that I really want you to go and get into this one. I did a video a lifetime ago on my French channel about this book, and a lot of people didn't know about it. So yeah, I really recommend you going into this book. If you didn't, please do so. If you really didn't read any of Baxter's books, it is a great way to go into his fiction, into his books. So yeah, I really recommend this one. Please tell me, guys, if you read this book, what you thought about it in the comments below, and I will see you guys on my different social media, Instagram, TikTok, GoodReads, what did I forget? Twitter, of course, and I will see you guys in my next video as well. Can I get a wahoo? Take care. Cheers.